Hey, what's up guys, this is Zola and I'm back with another tutorial. We're going to be going Cinema 4D today and modelling. Before we go into there, I just want to point out a project I've been working on. I started this last Sunday, and depending on when you've watched the tutorial or when you're watching it, maybe if you're watching this in a month this will be redundant and this gallery will be full. But I've started basically setting myself a challenge of painting every day for 30 minutes. I have no artistic training whatsoever, so I'm trying to kind of learn and teach myself, which is the way I've learned everything pretty much. So what I've been doing is just admiring the kind of work of some of the better artists out there and the people who inspire me, and seeing if by practicing every day for no longer than half an hour, whether I can actually get to a level where in a month where I've learned enough to be able to pull a tutorial on this and maybe go through some of the basics. So I think it's going to be interesting, and I would encourage you, if you want a project to do for a month, maybe just join in. It'd be cool to see other people trying this. You might not have a tablet maybe, so it might be a bit tricky with a mouse, but certainly not impossible. I know people that have painted with mouses before. Maybe you could get half an hour. But if you go to my Twitter, which is @Zola85, you can drop me if you do one every day, you can drop me a link on there and I will have a look, and we'll round them up at the end of the month. So yeah, that's a cool little project we got going on. Okay, now into cinema, and something which is very close to my heart at the moment is modelling, because I've been spending most of my waking hours doing it. Now, this is a bad start to a joke. As a wise man once said, if you can't model, you're ugly. Was it worth the wait? No, it probably wasn't. Okay, bad jokes aside, we are going to be learning about modelling today, and modelling is, I don't mind admitting, the hardest part of 3D for me. Certainly the part I wish I'd paid more attention at university. I did do games design, and so modelling was a rather large part of it. However, I just tended to surf the internet during those lessons, so I wish I hadn't, but there are some things that I remembered from 3ds Max, and certainly some things I've been picking back up again, which I want to run through with you now. So without further ado, let's just get started. First thing I want to say is that if you are going to want to model something specific, if you go to your viewport and click configure, if you go to the back, you can put images, and it's just worth kind of knowing that you can put images, can you see, in the back of your viewport. So if you have a picture of a car or a house or something that you want to do, and you can put one in each viewport, as long as I think they're flat. I'm not sure you can do it in perspective or not. And then resize, offset, whatever you want, and as long as you keep it consistent between the viewports, it will greatly help you certainly your proportions, especially from one side to the other, and that's a pretty useful trick. So if you want to start sketching out stuff before you come in, so you have a general idea of how you want your model to look eventually, that is a great use, I think. But that's not what I'm going to be covering today. I'm going to start with the basics, and the basics are box modeling. Many times, if you're going to be creating any kind of 3D model, you will start with a very simple kind of piece of geometry, and you can't get much more simple than a cube. I'm just going to leave this at this, and at the moment this is a primitives. We have our menu here. These are all primitive. Primitives cannot be edited until you go up here or you press C, and now, as you can see, I can select any vertex, in this case edge. Let's zoom in here, press Alt from the selected object, and if I want to select the points, we have the menu over here. We've got the edge one, or if you want to select like whole sides, you can do that as well. One thing I will note is that if you don't have tolerant selection on, you might have trouble selecting your your vertices or your sides. You'd have to make like a massive selection, so make sure that's on, because if not you will struggle. yeah, so box modeling is simple. There's also, if you come down here, you have auto switch mode, which is good because it lets you switch between being able to select all of them, and that is really useful if you're going to be switching between moving, moving kind of edges and then moving points around. So that's just worth knowing. But I think there's a couple of menus up here which might not work correctly if you're not in default mode, so just kind of be aware of that. The first thing I want to note is when you're building something, you want to know what your object is going to look like in the end. If you want it to be kind of smoothed, you're going to end up probably throwing it into Hypernerb's object, and that is one thing to be aware of when you're modeling it. So if you cut your model badly and you make vertices all over the place and some of them are not joined, just be aware that when you throw them into Hypernerbs eventually, if you press Q you can disable it temporarily. So when you throw your object into Hypernerbs eventually, and you just be aware that if you've modeled badly, then this is going to show when this starts basically adding twice as many polygons and vertices and stuff like that. Your model is going to crease, there's going to be unexpected like bands, and it just gets horrible. So just be aware when you are building that in the end you're probably going to end up throwing it into Hypernerbs and then refining it more. I'm just going to come back to when this point was where it was. I'm going to bring that out. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the tools. Delete. Let's have a look at some of the tools that we're going to be working with. Select our cube, and we have up here we have the structure menu. This is where all the tools for modeling lie pretty much. You've got the simple tools like, and remember that they're context sensitive, so if you have edges selected here, I think I've just extruded that. Can you see? Extrude, once again all your kind of parameters for the tool end up here. So here I have it creating one subdivision, which is actually making another polygon. If I come back and create 0, you'll just be extruding. And as you can see here, I'm just selecting sides and go to structure, extrude. This is the most basic kind of function there is, and obviously you can then pull your scale tool, scale parts up or down. Extrude again. If you hold V, you have all your menus which up here at a fingertip, and this is really useful. So you can bevel again, so bring it out, hit E, and you get the idea. Okay, so let's bring this back to a cube-like state. So that's the extrude tool. That's really useful for expanding your original block. Most of the time, the first thing you're going to want to be doing is start with a simple kind of object and then subdividing it. And this is done with the old knife tool. If you press K on your keyboard, it's up here as well somewhere. There it is. At the moment, you will probably have line as a default, and you can basically just cut, but the problem is, can you see there, unless you're doing it in a top or side viewport, you might have problems by cutting things wonkily, and these are the kind of things. Here we have a vertex which is unconnected, it's just halfway, and so that's the kind of things that will show up when you come to subdivide your kind of cube, so be aware of that. One of the most useful parts of the knife tool for me is you can, if you select your polygon mode, press knife and go to plane. If you want to cut like 4 or 5 ridges in at a time, look at that, that has cut like 4 ridges, and at the moment, as you can see, I've got a polygon selection, and so it's only cutting that selection. If I wanted this to cut everything, I would undo that, press Command A to select everything, and now can you see we've made massive cuts all the way down. And if you want to cut the other way, you just have to switch the plane here to XY, and then you've got ZX, which will cut, and so immediately we've gone from having a cube, which is a really simple object, to having lots of vertices to play with now, and if you Command Shift A or Control Shift A on the PC, we can now start, expanding this again. So yeah, that's a really useful tool. The knife tool is probably one of my most used tools. But once again, we're going to come backwards now and look at something else. The bevel, you might have seen me touch on just then. Bevel. Once again, this is context sensitive, so if you have all your things selected, you can basically inset your polygons that you got selected, and that's really useful because if you bring that in now, then hold V to go and bring extrude, and then extrude inwards. I think I've actually managed to basically subdivide inside, which probably doesn't make sense to you, but as you can see now we've gone from having, and if I select V and go to bevel again, we can basically keep going infinitely. And actually another cool tool is the matrix extrude, but you have to know how you're using that basically, and this basically will extrude over and over and over again based on, here I've got 5 steps, so it's extruded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then you can get it to scale up or down every time. If you add rotates, can you see you can get it to rotate as well, and that's really useful for kind of making abstract kind of objects. So yeah, I'm having way too much fun with that. I'm just going to delete this cube right now because it's getting a bit messy. Another thing I would like to say about the kind of bevel tool is, like I said, context sensitive. Now I'm going to select and hit C to make this editable. I'm going to select an edge now. So I'm actually going to change this to tweak, just that, auto switch, so that I can change to this. And once again, you could hold V, you can go up there, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to bevel just an edge now, and as you can see, that's done something completely different to what happened before. Instead of insetting the edges, now we've got new edges instead of new faces, and once again this presents us with a different set of problems. Now I told you about unconnected polygons, and I'm going to show you right now how to fix that. If you select the polygons here that you want to connect, and I've set it up in my menu here, but if not, you go to structure connect, and now we've made a new kind of cut between those points, and now our geometry is once again clean. I'm going to click there, but yeah, it's in the menu, and so now we have once again a clean object which is going to look alright when you subdivide it. Now say I did want to get rid of go back, maybe I've got an edge too many. I'm going to switch to polygon mode. I'm going to switch, and this is just to show that if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much go anywhere you want with these objects once you get the kind of tools in here down. We're going to go with weld this time, and weld will basically select 2 points that you have selected and weld them together to a new point which will be exactly in between. So if I click there, we've had an unexpected result there because I've actually selected the 2 wrong points. Okay, that's what it's doing. So basically there it made one in between all 4 points. You should be able to make it just between these 2. Let's have a look. It's because we don't have an extra line in the middle, so this is automatically collapsing. But just goes to show that you can basically collapse these edges back down. And also the opposite to connecting these, say you have too many of these, is you can dissolve them, which is just get rid of them completely. And once again, dissolve is just under connect, so it's there, and you can use that to get rid of these edges should you choose to, in case you wanted to maybe add a point down here and then connect this down here, because it'll look different when it when you kind of hypernerbs it. So if you did want to do that, I'm going to press MA here and add a point, just to show that you can literally do whatever the heck you want with this object. Now what I did there is, if you press M, make sure you don't move the mouse when you do this. It brings up a kind of quick menu, and you can memorize these if you want. Basically it's the fastest way to select them, as long as you know the kind of shortcut. It's M and then straight away another letter. Then that's the quick way. But what I used before was just the there's an add point. Add point, there it is. So M. Can you see everything here has a shortcut. M. M stands for modeling, I think, maybe. And so everything on here has a kind of shortcut. So let's have a look at another one. If I press M, and then we're going to press O for slide. Slide is one of the cooler tools that I've been playing with this week. And what this does is it moves the kind of poly along the edge, the vertex, sorry, along the edge. And that comes in really useful when you don't want to be doing this kind of stuff and moving and making sure your point is exactly like further along this line without, you know, trying to judge the perspective of the point. So yeah, use the slide tool, MO, for that one. Now we're going to move on to, this is going to be a longer lesson. I just really want to get through all these tools and all the things I've learnt, so that we have this kind of knowledge all in one place rather than doing it over 3 or 4 videos. So bear with me, please. Here we go. So once again we got our trusty cube, and actually no, I'm not going to use a cube for this. We're going to go with a capsule, and this is one of the cool kind of, where's the capsule? There it is. Never a pill when you need it. Okay. A capsule is once again a primitive. We're going to make this editable, and at the moment if I select on the side on view, make sure only select visible elements is off. So basically I'm going to delete all of these, and if we look inside we can see this is at the moment a single kind of, it's not thick, it's just got one inside, one polygon kind of thickness. So just to make that clear, what I'm going to do is, if I move out, hit Command A and go to extrude. And this is, I'm pretty sure this is a new feature. You used to have to do this with a plugin, as far as I'm aware, called excess thickness or make thicker. Sorry, I need to select polygon mode here. And what we're going to do now is select extrude. And for some reason I keep switching. See, this is when the auto switch gets annoying, because what I want to do here is just make this thicker. Okay, so basically what I've done there is I've got preserve groups and create caps on, and now if I were to cut this in half, again, deselect everything, if I were to delete that bottom half, you will now see that there is kind of 2 layers now to this. The problem is I've just ended up deleting, basically this is like the Russian dolls. And I say this because I literally had to model some Russian dolls recently. I had to get them popping open, and to create the bottom and then top half I had to cut the mesh in half. And as you can see here, we have the problem in that after you have made this kind of shape, you want to be able to split this into 2. So what I did is, before I cut this, I memorized the area where I was going to cut it. So if we have a look here, let's say we cut this whole half just before the top cap. So I'm just going to memorize that. I'm going to duplicate this object for now, and go here and delete all these bottom polys. So now I just have the top part of this, and we're going to select edge mode, and I'm going to show you another kind of tool and then a workaround, because Cinema hasn't, I know in 3D Max and certain other programs like Maya there is a quick way to do this, but anyway, so selecting the edge, see how fiddly this is? What I'm going to want to do is kind of select that edge and then bring it there. Now, as you can see, that was horrendously tricky, and to do this for every single cap is going to take quite a while and be incredibly fiddly, so I'm going to show you. The bridge tool is really useful though, don't get me wrong. As you can see, it does its job, and in areas where the kind of you want to close a hole and the geometry is not that the kind of perfectly laid out like it is here, the bridge tool does come in useful, which is why I wanted to show it you as an individual tool. But when you have a situation like this, I'm going to show you a quick workaround. So I'm going to hit U to bring up our, this is the selection menu, and I'm going to hit L. As you can see, it'll bring up our loop selection. So this lets you select a loop, and I'm going to select this loop here, this bad boy, and then this outer bad boy. So, and I've managed to not select them, so I'm going to I'll keep pressing the caps lock. One ding. Okay, so we've got these two loops selected, and what we're going to do now is, if I went to our structure menu once again, if I went to stitch and sew, this is where, bang, look at that, I've created a cap. And that saved me having to bridge everything. Now the problem is here is that we have a load of unused points, because when I went to delete all the polygons, we basically deleted the polygons and left all the vertices. So if you ever run into this, just go to functions and optimize, and this will delete all the unused points. But now obviously the problem is that I have this slip, and if I wanted this kind of thing to be lower, I could always like hit that, hit E, and bring it down and line it up. So that's one way of doing it. Another way, which is probably less of a hassle, I'm going to just run optimize here before I do this again, is if you select both loop edges, UL again, and so I've got them both selected. If you go to extrude, basically we're going to extrude a new edge, but it's going to be at an offset of 0, so you're basically not going to be able to tell. Click apply. I have them all selected here. If you have to go to tools, you can select them by holding them. Go to apply. So I've hit apply, nothing seems to have happened, but what happens is when I go to stitch and sew now, can you see it's just created a flat cap, and if that's the way you want it. The thing is, like here, there is an extra loop which is very well hidden, and if it becomes more apparent if you kind of move it down. Can you see if you move it upwards? We do have like a tiny little rim now, but that's something you can work around with the loop selection tool. So if that's the way you want to do it, I just thought I'd point out because it saved me lots of time. And obviously what I did with the Russian dolls is I then did that on the kind of lower half, so selected all my polygons and deleted, sorry, select the top half, deleted, and then did it for the bottom half, and then I had two separate objects, and one was the top, one was bottom. Okay, so we're making good ground now. I've gone through most of the stuff I want to show you already. Let's just have a quick scan down here. I'm sorry that I'm kind of fumbling through this, but I have pretty much covered the magnet tool. Yeah, okay, let's go with the magnet tool. I'm going to create a new, let's go with a sphere and convert. I just want to show the magnet tool is actually really similar to something called soft selection. If you go to if you click on your whatever you're selecting with for points, you have to go down here, select soft selection. And as you can see, what it does is, based on the points you've selected, point or points on the multiple, it allows you to control the fall off. Here I'm using a spline. This is the spline shape, or you can use, there's a bunch of presets here. Controlling the radius of the fall off for these points, so the area immediately around them will also kind of move in the same direction but to a lesser extent, and that extent is controlled by the radius and the strength. So if you don't want them to move that much, obviously this is not a great example, but what this is useful for is I'm going to come into this, once again hit that, I'm actually going to subdivide this, go into function subdivide times 2. So I've created a box with more edges now. And this is useful if, say, you have also Alt D, the most useful shortcut in the whole of Cinema, temporarily hides your axis and stops you having to go up here and doing this, which is frustrating and time wasting. So okay, so we have the point on the roof selected here. I say the roof because this is now going to look like an oddly shaped house. Behold the power of soft selection. Now I'm going to show you another way of doing this, because if you the problem you have is if, say, your mesh is really compressed. So we are going to press T and compress all these points down. And you go to, basically you go to move this top point, and this is an Alt D moment. And your radius, you want your radius to affect like wide, but also the problem is it's affecting like the points at the bottom. So if I crank the strength up here, as you can see I'm moving the top, but I'm also affecting stuff down here, and this is going to get really ugly and annoying, because that's not, it might be what you want to do, it might not be. So I'm going to show you another method, which is the, once again in the structure menu, the magneto. And this does a kind of similar thing in that you select points. So select these points here, and if I switch back to my magnet tool, it kind of pulls things around. And once again, for creating abstract shapes, fantastic. But yeah, it's like gives you more control than soft selection in case you just want to go crazy and create a stupid shape. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you is, what is that noise? Okay, never mind. Last thing I want to show you is, and this is a common thing that I found. Actually, let's do this with a text, because this is more usually what you're going to be using it with, or maybe when you've imported a spline from Illustrator, and you come to drop it in an extrude NURBS, and so you have your nice 3D text, and you're like, yeah, but now I want to make this editable, I want to make it funky. So you hit C, and so Cinema says, okay then, well, I'll give you your front sides, your back sides, which are around here, and your weird sides, sides, I guess. And so you say, okay then, Cinema, well, I'm going to connect and delete. And so Cinema says, well, here you go, here's the object. Do with it as you please. And you're like, okay, so I'm going to extrude this out. Now, I don't have my move tool for some reason. There we go. And whoa now, Cinema, you have been lying to me. That is not connected. Horrible things are happening in my life. And so this is obviously going to cause a problem for whatever you want to be doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell Cinema to do this properly and stop lying to us. So I'm going to come back to the point where I've just connected and delete. So I right click, connect and delete, and so now we have one object supposedly, but it isn't really. So I'm going to go to MoGraph, Fracture, and like I said, there might be a better way of doing this, but it was kind of a hard thing to search for, so I'm just going to explode segments and connect, select your fracture object, hit C, and as you can see now we've got all these polygons. We're going to, for one last time, connect and delete, bring this out, delete fracture object, thank you very much, you've done your job. And now, by the magic of magic, wow, this is actually now an object that I can rotate and disfigure in any way I want. So yeah, that was the last one. It might be common knowledge, there might be a faster or better way to do this, I'm not sure. If there isn't, I've just given you another one. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to be probably away for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be very busy, so this might be the last one for a fortnight or so. So just enjoy it, and hopefully I made the kind of magic behind modelling a little more clear to you. Thanks for watching, and see ya.